Morning, I'm Eric D. I'm here to talk to you today about my run for the U.S. Senate in Ohio. I'd like to discuss term limits, which I'm a big believer of. In fact, I don't believe in term limits with an S on the end. I believe in term limit. I feel that 6 years in the U.S. Senate is plenty to represent your country. One term and you should go home. The House of Representatives are a little short of 2 years, so I would suggest a 4 or 6 year term also, alternating between different classes of representatives. There's many reasons why I think term limits are a good solution to many of our country's problems. So let's start right at the top. As our country's grown over the years, we've still had the same amount of people in the House of Representatives and the same number of U.S. senators. So as the population grows, each House seat now represents a bigger and bigger segment of the population. They carry more power, more clout, and are more targeted by the special interest groups and lobbyists that go to Washington to curry favors. Now, if you have term limits, then the influence of these lobbyists, which are perfectly within their rights in the First Amendment to be there influencing the decisions of their government, they certainly lose their power. Because when the politicians can only run for one term, and the only power that the lobbyists have over them is donations to their campaign coffers, then they lose it. If you're only there for one term, then the campaign finance laws would be simple. You can't raise money for campaigning because you're only there one term. And if you care to choose to run for the House if you're in the Senate, or to run for the Senate if you're in the House, then the law should simply say that you can't serve consecutive terms. You have to sit out whatever that off period would be. And that's when you raise your money for campaigning. We also see a lot of earmarks and pork barrel projects and a lot of wasted government monies. Well, see, politicians love those earmarks, and they vote on them for each other, and they bargain back and forth and horse trade them around. But that's the very good deeds that they take back to their constituents when they're campaigning to run again. And they brag about the many projects they brought back to their district that prove they're just such a great guy for their district and their state and their nation. If they weren't running again, then they wouldn't need to waste this money in the first place. And believe me, a lot of it is just complete waste, such as the bridges to nowhere, and studying how potatoes grow in the dark for 2 years straight. Just crazy projects that none of us understand why we would never spend the money on. Now, if we eliminate that, then it sort of takes away the power of the lobbyists, and it also takes away that incumbent advantage. We don't have incumbents anymore. The only ones you have are the ones cross-pollinating from one house to the other. And having set out a 2 year term, then it'll force them to go back to the voters, just as I am running in front of you, and prove their worth, prove their principles, be a man of their word, to get the votes to serve again. So another thing to look at would be the judicial nomination process. And we certainly see that in the U.S. Senate, where we have guys that have been there for many terms, 6 year terms. Who've been there 5 terms. We have guys that have us 30 years. We have guys that have been there longer than that. A lot of them were quite wealthy and out of touch with the average American citizen when they got there. I guarantee after they've been there 30 years, they don't have a clue what it's like out in the real world, nor do they know what a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk costs. But these guys get to pick, and nominate, and vote for, and confirm the judges that represent the judicial system of our nation. And you see, that seems to be a problem, because we're supposed to have a balance of power between the executive, judicial, and the legislative branches. But when some of the guys have been in the Senate for so many years, and they got the vote to confirm just about everybody in the Supreme Court and a lot of federal judges, then I sort of think it gets a little gray as to whether there's really a separation of judicial and legislative branches. We also see in government in general, throughout the history of mankind, corruption that comes with power. Power corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts ultimately. It doesn't happen right away. We have some good people of service and left. We have some good people of service and managed to stay. Have some resemblance of principles, good behavior. But a lot of people get corrupt as they serve longer. They seem to crave that power and don't want to give it up. The prestige, the benefits of office, the clout that carries, and the respect they get. But you see, this corruption it leads to, they should be protected from. We should limit that, just protect them from their own human nature, and and protect our country from the same kind of waste and fraud that we've seen many times over as congressmen have been prosecuted for crimes they committed. I think that term limits make a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of reasons why we should have them. But I do know that the two parties we have in power always have control within a 60-40 or a 50-50 split. And there's really no reason they have to pass term limits. They know that they're going to be in control in the future, if not the next day, but when they lose power, they fight over those earmarks and don't get as many, but they know their turn will come again. If we want term limits, then we truly need to impact the makeup of the parties and be willing to vote for new third, fourth, and fifth parties and good independents. Start voting for men of principle and women of principle over parties, and we can get our nation back on track. I have an excellent term limits paper that outlines these items probably in much better detail and more logical order because I got to think about it as I wrote it. You can find that on the position paper page at www.deatonforsenate.com. Please go there and check out that item as well as many other positions that I hold on the issues. Thank you.